The communication array on the Zephyrian flagship crackled to life with a strange signal. Admiral Kethavar looked up from his tactical display, his four eyes blinking in confusion. The bridge crew turned their attention to the incoming transmission, expecting another surrender message from a conquered world. Instead, they heard something different. Numbers. Simple mathematical sequences followed by crude drawings of circles, lines, and basic shapes. The transmission repeated the same pattern over and over again. "What is this garbage?" Admiral Kethavar demanded, his voice echoing through the massive bridge of the Imperial dreadnought. Lieutenant Zexron, the ship's communication officer, checked his instruments twice before responding. "Sir, the signal originates from a system at the edge of the galaxy. A small yellow star with several planets. The inhabitants call their world Earth." Admiral Kethavar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Earth? Never heard of it. What kind of primitive species sends mathematical lessons instead of proper diplomatic channels?" The bridge crew joined their admiral's laughter. After conquering 12 star systems, they had seen many strange alien customs, but this was particularly amusing. The Zephyrian Empire controlled the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Their ships could travel between stars in days. Their weapons could crack planets, and their shields could stop any known attack. "Run a deep scan on this Earth," Admiral Kethavar ordered. "Let's see what these mathematicians have built for themselves." The results appeared on the main screen within hours. Earth was a small blue and green planet with one moon. Long-range sensors showed primitive chemical rockets launching into space. The inhabitants had barely managed to place a few satellites in orbit around their world. Some of them had even walked on their moon, but they used explosive rockets to get there. "Look at this," Lieutenant Zexron called out, pointing to the sensor data. "They burn chemicals to achieve escape velocity. They actually explode their way into space." The laughter on the bridge grew louder. Every civilized species in the galaxy had discovered graviton manipulation thousands of years ago. The idea of using controlled explosions for space travel was like using stone tools to build a starship. "Sir," the ship's science officer reported, "our xenobiology team has classified them as pre-spaceflight primitives. They haven't even established permanent colonies on their moon. Their longest space missions last only a few months." Admiral Kethavar shook his head in disbelief. "And they think they can contact advanced civilizations? What's next? Are they going to invite us for dinner?" The Admiral's joke brought fresh waves of laughter from the crew. The humans of Earth had become an instant source of entertainment for the Imperial fleet. 3 days later, Admiral Kethavar presented his findings to the Imperial Council on Zephyr Prime. The massive chamber held representatives from all conquered worlds. Though they sat in designated areas marked as subjugated species, only the Zephyrian leadership occupied the central platform. "Honored counselors," Admiral Kethavar began, "I bring news of a curious discovery. A species calling themselves humans has attempted to contact advanced civilizations using primitive mathematical signals." Ambassador Velthar, the Empire's chief diplomatic officer, leaned forward with interest. "Where are these humans located?" "At the very edge of the galaxy, in a system so insignificant it doesn't appear on our strategic maps. They inhabit a single world and have barely managed to leave its surface." The council chamber filled with the sound of Zephyrian amusement. Ambassador Velthar accessed the sensor data on his personal display, studying the information about Earth's technology and society. "Fascinating," he said, though his tone suggested he found it more ridiculous than fascinating. "They have over 200 separate political entities on a single planet. They can't even unite their own world, yet they reach out to the stars. It gets better," Admiral Kethavar continued. "They still use fossil fuels for energy and fight wars with projectile weapons. Some of their nations don't even have access to basic medical care." The laughter in the chamber became almost deafening. Ambassador Velthar raised his hand for silence. "I propose we classify this Earth as threat level 0, he announced. "Not even worth monitoring beyond basic stellar cartography. If they ever develop faster than light travel, which seems unlikely in the next 1,000 years, we can deal with them then." The council voted unanimously. Earth was filed away in the Imperial database as a curiosity, nothing more. The humans had achieved the remarkable feat of making themselves a joke across multiple star systems without ever leaving their own solar system. But on Earth, something remarkable was happening in a facility buried deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland. Dr. Sarah, Chen stood in front of a machine that looked like a cross between a particle accelerator and a spider web made of gleaming metal. Her team had been working in absolute secrecy for 5 years, funded by a coalition of nations that had agreed to share their most advanced scientific knowledge. "Run the test again," Dr. Chen ordered, her voice steady despite her excitement. The machine hummed to life, generating quantum fields that bent space in ways that should have been impossible. On one side of the laboratory, a small metal sphere sat on a platform. On the other side, 50 meters away, an identical platform waited empty. The sphere vanished. It didn't fade away or become invisible. It simply ceased to exist in its original location and appeared instantly on the second platform. No time passed between disappearance and reappearance. The sphere had jumped from one place to another without traveling through the space between. "Perfect quantum entanglement maintained," reported Dr. Kim, the team's quantum physicist. "No information loss, no energy decay. The object is identical to its original state down to the atomic level." Dr. Chen smiled, but she kept her excitement contained. "How large can we make the effect?" "Theoretically, there's no upper limit. We've learned to work with quantum uncertainty instead of trying to control it. Every other species we've studied tries to predict and dominate quantum mechanics. We've learned to dance with it instead." In the months that followed, the tests grew more ambitious. Small animals successfully teleported from one platform to another, emerging unharmed and unchanged. Then larger objects, then complex machinery. Finally, Dr. Chen herself stepped onto the platform and vanished, reappearing instantly across the laboratory with nothing more than a slight tingling sensation. The breakthrough had come from humanity's unique approach to the problem. While other civilizations sought to eliminate quantum uncertainty, humans had learned to embrace it. They didn't try to predict where particles would be. They learned to be everywhere at once until observation collapsed the possibilities into reality. Above ground, the world continued as normal. Politicians argued, corporations competed, and people went about their daily lives. None of them knew that their species had just achieved something the galaxy's greatest scientists considered impossible. In space, automated probes launched quietly from hidden facilities, their existence known only to a select few. These probes didn't use chemical rockets or even the fusion drives that represented humanity's most advanced public technology. They simply appeared in the empty space between planets, testing the limits of their quantum displacement systems far from any watching eyes. The Zephyrian Empire continued to expand, crushing resistance with overwhelming firepower and technological superiority. Their intelligence networks monitored thousands of species across the galaxy, watching for any sign of advanced technology that might pose a threat. But they weren't watching Earth. Why would they? The humans couldn't even build a proper starship, let alone threaten an empire that spanned multiple star systems. Dr. Chen stood in her laboratory, watching as her team successfully teleported an entire spacecraft from Earth to Mars in the span of a heartbeat. The vessel appeared in Martian orbit exactly where they had intended, its crew reporting no ill effects from the journey. "How long until we can move an entire fleet?" she asked. "Give us 6 months," Dr. Kim replied. "Maybe less." Neither of them mentioned the Zephyrian Empire by name, but both knew that humanity's isolation wouldn't last forever. Sooner or later, the galaxy's attention would turn to Earth. When that happened, they would be ready with a surprise that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. 3 years had passed since the Zephyrian Empire had dismissed Earth as a harmless curiosity. In that time, the Empire had grown more powerful and more ruthless. Their expansion across the galaxy followed a pattern that had never failed. Overwhelming force followed by complete subjugation. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the final moments of the Altarion coalition's resistance. The coalition had lasted 6 days against the Imperial fleet, which was longer than most civilizations managed. Their crystalline ships had put up a good fight, using energy weapons that could slice through standard armor, plating. But the Zephyrians had come prepared with quantum-hardened battle armor and graviton cannons that could tear apart matter at the molecular level. The Coalition's last stronghold, a massive space station orbiting their homeworld, cracked like an egg under the Imperial bombardment. Coalition forces are requesting terms of surrender. Lieutenant Zexrun reported from the communication station. "Standard terms," Admiral Kethvar replied without emotion. "Complete surrender of all military assets, tribute of 30% of their annual production, and integration into the Imperial workforce. The Coalition Admiral's face appeared on the main screen, his crystalline features showing defeat and despair. "We accept your terms, Admiral Kethvar. Please spare our civilian population." "Your cooperation is noted," the Imperial Admiral responded. "Resistance would have been futile anyway." The pattern repeated itself across the Outer Rim territories. The Centauri Federation didn't even try to fight. When the Imperial fleet arrived at their borders, they surrendered immediately, having witnessed what happened to species that resisted. Their leaders begged for mercy and offered to serve the Empire in exchange for their people's lives. The Vegan Trade Union lasted 3 hours. The Barnard Star Mining Consortium managed 2 days before their hastily assembled defense fleet was reduced to floating debris. Each victory made the Empire stronger, adding new resources, technology, and slave labor to their growing domain. On Earth, Admiral Rebecca Torres watched the reports with growing concern. The United Nations Space Command had been monitoring galactic communications for 2 years. Ever since Dr. Chen's team had developed quantum receivers capable of intercepting faster-than-light transmissions. "The Empire is moving faster than our projections indicated," reported Colonel Martinez, the UNSC's intelligence chief. "They've conquered 7 star systems in the past 6 months alone." Admiral Torres studied the holographic display showing the Empire's expansion. Red markers indicated conquered worlds, while yellow markers showed systems under attack. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The Zephyrians were sweeping across the galaxy like a plague, destroying everything in their path. "How long before they reach us?" she asked. "At their current rate of expansion, they'll be at our borders within 5 years, maybe less if they decide to accelerate their timeline." Dr. Sarah Chen joined the meeting, her lab coat still bearing traces of quantum residue from her latest experiments. "Project Prometheus is ahead of schedule," she announced. "We've successfully tested full-scale teleportation on vessels up to cruiser size." Admiral Torres turned to face the scientist who had changed everything. "How many ships can we deploy?" 250 vessels are currently operational, with another 100 in final testing. Each ship can carry a full crew and weapons load. More importantly, they can appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. The Admiral nodded grimly. "And our weapon systems? Conventional kinetic and energy weapons, but deployed in unconventional ways. Our advantage isn't firepower. It's the ability to strike where and when the enemy least expects it." Dr. Chen activated a small holographic projector, showing a simplified model of their quantum displacement technology. Other species try to control quantum mechanics through brute force. They use massive computers to calculate probability states and expensive stabilizers to maintain quantum coherence. We took a different approach. The hologram showed waves of probability flowing around a ship-shaped object. Instead of trying to pin down the vessel's exact location, the human design allowed it to exist in multiple states, simultaneously until the moment they chose to observe it in a specific location. "It's like the difference between trying to grab a handful of water and learning to swim," Dr. Chen explained. "Every other civilization treats quantum uncertainty as a problem to be solved. We treat it as a natural force to be harnessed." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, refugee ships fled from the advancing Imperial fleet. The lucky ones escaped to remote systems where they could hide among asteroid fields or dead planets. The unlucky ones were captured and forced into Imperial service. Captain Velmak of the Altarion refugee ship, Starlight, had been running for 3 weeks when his vessel finally reached the edge of Imperial space. His ship carried 2,000 civilians, all that remained of a colony world that had been strip-mined for resources. "Any sign of pursuit?" he asked his navigator. "Nothing on sensors, Captain. I think we're clear." But Captain Velmak knew they weren't really safe. The Empire would eventually expand into this region too. It was only a matter of time before their graviton cannons and quantum-hardened armor swept away any resistance. In his private quarters, he composed a message to be transmitted on all frequencies, hoping that someone, somewhere, might be listening. The message was simple. "The Zephyrian Empire shows no mercy. They take everything and leave nothing behind. If anyone receives this, prepare for war or prepare to serve." The message was intercepted by monitoring stations across dozens of star systems. Most of the listeners were other refugee groups or primitive civilizations that lacked the technology to threaten the Empire. But one receiver was different. On a hidden space station orbiting Pluto, UNSC technicians decoded the Altarian captain's warning. Admiral Torres read the translation with a heavy heart, knowing that thousands of similar messages had been sent by dying civilizations. "Ma'am," Colonel Martinez said quietly, "we're receiving reports that the Empire has established a forward base in the Wolf 359 system. That's only 8 light years from Earth." Admiral Torres felt a chill run down her spine. The Empire was closer than they had anticipated. "How long before they notice us?" "Unknown. Our quantum displacement systems have kept our space infrastructure hidden, but if they conduct a thorough survey of this region, they'll find us eventually," the Admiral finished. "Dr. Chen, how soon can we deploy the full fleet?" 6 months for complete deployment, but we could launch a limited operation sooner if necessary. Admiral Torres made her decision. "Begin preparations for Operation Prometheus. If the Empire is coming to us, we'll be ready for them." In the depths of space, the first human starships began to take shape. Unlike the massive dreadnoughts favored by the Empire, human vessels were sleek and compact, designed for speed and maneuverability rather than raw firepower. They carried no heavy armor or massive shields because they were never supposed to be hit. Each ship was equipped with quantum displacement drives that could move them instantly across vast distances. Their crews trained in tactics that no other military force had ever considered. How to fight an enemy when you could appear anywhere at any time. The Empire's military doctrine was based on overwhelming firepower and superior technology. They built bigger guns, stronger shields, and faster ships than anyone else in the galaxy. It had worked against every enemy they had ever faced, but humanity was about to introduce a new kind of warfare, one where traditional advantages meant nothing. The Empire had laughed at Earth's primitive technology, dismissing humans as barely worth their attention. Soon, they would learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you never see coming. Dr. Chen stood in the command center of the hidden lunar facility, watching as the last of the prototype vessels completed its final test run. The ship had successfully teleported from Earth to Jupiter and back in the space of a few heartbeats, proving that their technology could handle interplanetary distances with ease. "Fleet Command reports all systems operational," her assistant announced. "We're ready for the next phase." Dr. Chen nodded, knowing that the next phase would determine humanity's fate. Either their technology would prove sufficient to challenge the galaxy's greatest military power, or Earth would join the growing list of conquered worlds. But she had confidence in human ingenuity. They had solved the impossible problem of quantum teleportation by approaching it differently than everyone else. Now they were about to show the galaxy that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to change the rules entirely. The quantum signature was weak but unmistakable. Lieutenant Zexron stared at his sensor display, checking the readings for the third time in as many minutes. Something was generating unusual quantum fluctuations in the Sol system, the same system where those primitive humans lived. "Admiral," he called across the bridge, "we're detecting strange energy patterns from that Earth system we cataloged 3 years ago." Admiral Cuthbert looked up from his strategic planning session with mild interest. The Imperial fleet had just finished establishing a forward operating base in the Wolf 359 system, and they were planning their next wave of expansion. Earth was supposed to be an insignificant backwater world. "What kind of energy patterns?" the Admiral asked. "Quantum fluctuations, sir. Very faint but definitely artificial. Our computers suggest the humans might be experimenting with nuclear technology." Admiral Kethvar laughed. "Nuclear technology? How primitive. Are they trying to build fusion reactors or weapons?" "The signature doesn't match either, sir. It's more complex than simple fusion, almost like—" Lieutenant Zexron paused, checking his instruments again. "Sir, the computers are suggesting quantum manipulation, but that can't be right." The Admiral's laughter grew louder, and other bridge officers joined in. The idea that a species barely capable of chemical rockets could manipulate quantum fields was ridiculous. Even the Empire's most advanced scientists struggled with stable quantum manipulation. "Run a full scan of the system," Admiral Kethvar ordered. "Let's see what these clever humans have managed to accomplish." Within hours, the long-range sensors painted a picture that confused everyone on the Imperial bridge. The Sol system appeared almost empty. Earth was still there, of course, along with its moon and the other planets. But all the space infrastructure that their previous scans had detected was gone. "Where are their space stations?" Admiral Kethvar demanded. "The orbital platforms, the lunar bases, the Mars colonies that were under construction?" Lieutenant Zexron checked his sensors multiple times before responding. Sir, there's nothing there. No artificial structures in orbit around any planet. No signs of mining operations in the asteroid belt. It's as if they've abandoned space entirely. Or they detected our scouts and went into hiding, suggested the tactical officer. Some species try to hide their capabilities when they know a superior force is nearby. Admiral Kethvar considered this possibility. It would be smart for a primitive species to hide their infrastructure when facing the Empire, but it also suggested that the humans were more cunning than their previous assessments had indicated. Dispatch Captain Dexmal with the 15th Squadron, he decided. 50 ships should be more than enough to investigate this mystery and bring the humans into compliance. Captain Dexmal was a young officer eager to prove himself in combat. The assignment to investigate Earth was seen as an easy mission, perfect for junior officers to gain experience without facing any real danger. The humans had no known military space fleet, no weapons capable of threatening Imperial vessels, and no allies to call for assistance. The Imperial squadron dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, their massive ships casting dark shadows against the star field. Each vessel was over a kilometer long, bristling with graviton cannons and protected by quantum-hardened shields that could withstand the firepower of entire planetary defense networks. Sensors show the same readings as before, reported the squadron's science officer. No space infrastructure, no military installations. The humans appear to have retreated to their planet's surface. Captain Dexmal nodded approvingly. Smart of them. They must have realized they couldn't fight us in space. The Imperial squadron proceeded toward Earth at a leisurely pace, confident in their overwhelming technological superiority. Their sensors detected a few small satellites in Earth orbit, but nothing that could be considered a threat. The humans had apparently chosen to surrender without a fight. As they approached the inner system, Captain Dexmal prepared the standard Imperial ultimatum. Every species received the same message: surrender unconditionally and serve the Empire, or face complete destruction. Open a communication channel to Earth, he ordered. The message was transmitted on all frequencies, ensuring that every human government would receive it. People of Earth, this is Captain Dexmal of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. Your system is now under Imperial jurisdiction. You will surrender all military assets and submit to Imperial authority. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your civilization. The response came faster than expected. Instead of the usual pleas for mercy or desperate attempts at negotiation, the humans sent a simple message. We've been waiting for you. The bridge crew exchanged glances of confusion. Waiting for them? That was an unusual response from a primitive species facing overwhelming force. Sir, the communication officer added, they're also requesting our fleet positions and tactical deployment information. Captain Dexmal burst into laughter. They want our tactical information? Are they planning to teach us military strategy? These humans are even more amusing than we thought. The laughter spread through the bridge as officers shared jokes about human arrogance. The idea that a species with chemical rockets could threaten Imperial forces was beyond ridiculous. Sir, we're detecting small craft launching from Earth, the sensor operator reported. Approximately 30 vessels, each about the size of our shuttles. Captain Dexmal looked at the tactical display with amusement. 30 tiny ships against 50 Imperial dreadnoughts? Either the humans were incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. What kind of weapons are they carrying? He asked. Unknown, sir. The ships are too small to carry any significant armament. Our computers can't even detect engine signatures. They appear to be coasting on momentum alone. Coasting? Captain Dexmal shook his head in disbelief. They're not even using proper propulsion? Are they planning to ram us with glorified escape pods? The Imperial tactical computer automatically classified the approaching human vessels as negligible threat, standard. Protocol didn't even require targeting. Solutions for such insignificant objects. Sir, the human vessels are requesting permission to approach for negotiations, the communication officer reported. Captain Dexmal considered this request. It was common for defeated species to send diplomatic missions before formally surrendering. The humans were probably hoping to negotiate terms that would allow them to maintain some degree of autonomy. Let them approach, he decided, but maintain battle stations. These humans might be desperate enough to attempt a suicide attack. The 30 human vessels continued their approach, moving slowly and steadily toward the Imperial fleet. They showed no signs of advanced propulsion systems, no energy shields, and no visible weapons. To Imperial sensors, they looked like primitive spacecraft held together with metal and hope. What the Imperial sensors couldn't detect was the quantum field generators humming quietly in the core of each human vessel. The ships existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously present and absent from normal space, until their crews chose to collapse the probability wave into a specific location. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the command chair of the lead vessel, the UNS Prometheus. Around her, the crew made final preparations for humanity's first engagement with an interstellar military force. They had trained for this moment for 2 years, but training could only prepare them so much. "All ships report ready," announced Commander Williams from the tactical station. Dr. Chen nodded calmly. "Remember, we're not here to destroy them. We're here to disable their fleet and show them that humanity can defend itself. Minimal casualties, maximum psychological impact." "Understood, ma'am." Captain Dexmal watched the human vessels approach with growing impatience. They were moving too slowly for his liking, and he wanted to get this meaningless engagement over with so he could return to more important duties. "Fire a warning shot across their bow," he ordered. "Let them know we're serious about this surrender demand." The Imperial flagship's main graviton cannon charged to quarter power and fired a beam of focused gravitational energy. The shot was designed to pass harmlessly in front of the lead human vessel, demonstrating Imperial firepower without actually destroying anything. The beam lanced through empty space where the human ship had been a moment before. Captain Dexmal stared at his sensors in confusion. The human vessel had simply vanished. Not destroyed, not vaporized by the graviton beam, but gone as if it had never existed. "Where did it go?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. The vessel just disappeared from our sensors. No explosion, no debris field. It's just not there anymore." Before anyone could respond, the missing human ship reappeared directly behind the Imperial flagship, well within the protective formation of the squadron. "How did they get past our sensors?" Captain Dexmal shouted. "No ship can move that fast." His answer came in the form of 30 human vessels simultaneously vanishing from their positions in front of the Imperial fleet and reappearing scattered throughout the squadron formation. They materialized inside the protective envelope of the fleet, appearing exactly where Imperial doctrine said enemy ships couldn't possibly be. "Battle stations," Captain Dexmal ordered, but his crew was already scrambling to respond to an impossible situation. The human ships had achieved something that violated every known law of space. Captain Dexmal gripped his command chair as alarms blared throughout the Imperial flagship. On the tactical display, red markers indicated human vessels scattered throughout his fleet formation. They had appeared inside his defensive perimeter without triggering a single proximity alarm. "All ships open fire," he commanded. "Destroy those vessels immediately." The Imperial fleet responded with devastating firepower. Graviton cannons charged to full power, sending beams of destructive energy toward the human ships. Plasma torpedoes streaked through space, their targeting computers locked onto the small vessels that had dared to challenge Imperial might. But when the weapons fired, they hit empty space. The human ships had vanished again, disappearing in the instant between target lock and weapon discharge. Imperial gunners found themselves firing at nothing, their massive weapons carving harmless paths through the void. "Where are they?" Captain Dexmal demanded, his voice rising with frustration and growing fear. "Sensors show, sir, this is impossible. They're everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Our computers can't maintain target locks because the ships keep ceasing to exist." Lieutenant Torval at the tactical station called out in alarm. "Sir, something just appeared in our engine bay." Captain Dexmal spun toward the internal ship sensors. A human vessel had materialized inside the flagship's hull, occupying space that should have been filled with the ship's main reactor compartment. The human ship sat there like it belonged, completely unaffected by the solid metal that should have prevented its arrival. "How is that possible?" the captain whispered. His answer came in the form of a precise energy beam that struck the flagship's primary shield generator. The beam didn't come from outside the ship where defenses could stop it. It came from inside the hull where no enemy weapon should have been able to reach. The flagship's shields flickered and died. Across the Imperial fleet, the same impossible attack pattern repeated itself. Human vessels appeared inside ship hulls, delivered precise strikes against critical systems, then vanished before return fire could be targeted. They weren't trying to destroy the Imperial ships. They were systematically disabling them with surgical precision. Dr. Sarah Chen watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the UNS Prometheus. Her ship existed in quantum superposition, simultaneously present in dozens of possible locations, until she chose to collapse the probability wave into a specific position. "Target their weapon systems first," she ordered. "Shield generators second, propulsion third. We want them helpless, not dead." Commander Williams coordinated the attack from the tactical station. "All ships, remember your training. Appear, strike, disappear. Don't give them time to adapt." The human fleet danced through space in ways that defied Imperial understanding. They materialized long enough to fire a single shot, then vanished before the target ship could respond. They appeared inside enemy formations, struck at vulnerable systems, and disappeared into quantum uncertainty. Captain Dexmile watched in horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. The Imperial ships had been designed to fight conventional enemies using conventional tactics. Their massive guns were useless against targets that could teleport. Their heavy armor meant nothing when enemies could appear inside their hulls. "Captain, the humans are hailing us," his communication officer reported, his voice shaking with confusion and fear. "Put them through," Captain Dexmile said, hoping to understand what was happening to his fleet. Dr. Chen's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. "Captain Dexmile, this is Dr. Sarah Chen of the Terra Defense Force. Your fleet has been disabled. Please prepare for boarding." "Boarding?" Captain Dexmile looked around his darkened bridge, where emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on damaged control panels. "You can't board Imperial vessels. Our security systems are designed to prevent conventional boarding attempts," Dr. Chen finished. "We're not using conventional methods." As if to prove her point, armed humans began materializing in the corridors of Imperial ships throughout the fleet. They didn't arrive through docking tubes or transport beams. They simply appeared in key locations: bridge approaches, engineering sections, weapon control centers. The Imperial crews, trained for conventional combat, found themselves facing an enemy that ignored the basic rules of warfare. Human boarding parties appeared behind security barriers, inside sealed compartments and in areas that should have been completely inaccessible. But the humans weren't acting like conquerors. They moved with professional efficiency, securing critical areas and offering medical aid to confused Imperial crew members. There was no brutality, no revenge for the Empire's crimes against other species, just calm, competent soldiers doing their job. Captain Dexmile found himself face to face with a human officer who had simply appeared on his bridge. The woman wore a simple uniform with no decoration except a small name tag reading, "Commander Torres." "Captain," she said politely, "I need you to order your crew to stand down. No one needs to be hurt here." "How?" Captain Dexmile asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How are you doing this?" Commander Torres smiled slightly. "Quantum displacement technology. We've learned to exist in multiple states simultaneously until we choose to collapse into a specific location. That's impossible. Our greatest scientists have tried for centuries to achieve stable quantum teleportation. The energy requirements alone. You've been approaching the problem wrong," Commander Torres explained. "You try to control quantum mechanics to predict and dominate it. We learned to work with quantum uncertainty instead of against it." Word of the impossible battle spread through the Imperial communication network within hours. Admiral Kethvar received Captain Dexmile's initial report while planning the invasion of another star system. He read the message 3 times before calling for verification. "Confirm this report," he demanded. "Are you telling me that 50 Imperial dreadnoughts have been defeated by 30 primitive vessels?" "The message is verified, sir," his communication officer replied. "Captain Dexmile's entire squadron has been disabled. No Imperial casualties, but every ship is powerless and under human control." Admiral Kethvar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: genuine fear. The Empire had conquered dozens of species, each with their own advanced technology and military traditions. But none of them had ever demonstrated anything like this. "What do the humans want?" he asked. The answer came in a broad transmission sent to every Imperial facility in the galaxy. Dr. Sarah Chen appeared on communication screens throughout the Empire, her message simple and direct. "People of the Zephyrian Empire," she began, "humanity has no desire for conquest or revenge. We seek only to defend ourselves and to protect other species from Imperial aggression." She paused, allowing her words to sink in across multiple star systems. "However, we want to make something very clear. Earth's quantum displacement technology makes traditional concepts of borders and military defense obsolete. We can appear anywhere in the galaxy at any time. Any attempt to attack Earth or our allies will result in immediate retaliation against Imperial forces." The transmission continued with a demonstration that shook the Empire to its core. Human vessels began appearing at Imperial facilities across the galaxy, not to attack, but to show that distance meant nothing to their technology. A human ship materialized in orbit around Zephyr Prime itself, the Empire's capital world, broadcasting a simple message. "We could have brought weapons instead of words." Dr. Chen's voice concluded the transmission. "The age of Imperial expansion is over. We're offering you the chance to join a peaceful galactic community instead of ruling it through fear. Choose wisely." Throughout the Empire, military commanders stared at their sensors in disbelief. The humans had just demonstrated that they could strike any target anywhere without warning. Traditional military thinking became meaningless when the enemy could appear inside your command center or materialize next to your homeworld. Captain Dexmal sat in his disabled flagship, watching human technicians work to repair the damage they had inflicted. They were efficient and professional, treating his crew with courtesy despite being their prisoners. "I don't understand," he said to Commander Torres. "You could have destroyed us easily. Why did you show mercy?" Commander Torres looked up from the tablet she was reading. "Because that's not who we are. Humanity learned long ago that strength without compassion leads to the kind of empire you serve. We prefer to build something better." She gestured toward the tactical display, which now showed the positions of human vessels throughout Imperial space. "Your leaders have a choice to make. They can continue trying to rule through fear, knowing that we can appear anywhere they are, or they can join us in building a galaxy where different species work together instead of conquering each other." Captain Dexmal realized that everything had changed. The Empire's military doctrine, their strategic planning, their entire approach to galactic politics had become obsolete in the space of a single battle. Humanity had revealed not just a new technology, but a new way of thinking about power and conflict. They had shown that the strongest force in the galaxy wasn't the one with the biggest guns, but the one that could be everywhere at once. The age of... Admiral Keithfer stood in the Imperial Council chamber on Zephyr Prime, staring at reports that defied everything he thought he knew about warfare. In the 3 days since the humans had disabled Captain Dexmal's squadron, similar incidents had occurred across the galaxy. Human vessels had appeared at 17 different Imperial installations, not to attack but to deliver a simple message. Surrender your occupation forces and withdraw to your home systems, or face the consequences. Most Imperial commanders, seeing what had happened to the 15th Squadron, had chosen to comply. "Sir," Lieutenant Zexran approached with another communication tablet. "We're receiving withdrawal requests from our garrison commanders in the Altarion, Centauri, and Vegan systems. They say they can't defend against an enemy that can appear anywhere without warning." Admiral Kethavar took the tablet and read the messages with growing despair. His carefully constructed empire was collapsing not through military defeat, but through the simple realization that their military advantages meant nothing against quantum displacement technology. "What about our research division?" he asked. "Can our scientists duplicate this human technology?" "They've been working on it for 72 hours straight," Lieutenant Zexran replied. "Initial reports suggest that quantum displacement requires a fundamentally different approach to physics than we've been using. Our scientists estimate it would take decades to develop, assuming it's even possible for our technology base." The Admiral sat heavily in his command chair. The Empire had spent centuries building the most powerful military force in the galaxy, only to have it rendered obsolete by a species they had dismissed as primitive. On Earth, Admiral Rebecca Torres walked through the corridors of the newly established Galactic Coordination Center in Geneva. The facility buzzed with activity as human diplomats, scientists, and military officers worked to manage the rapid changes occurring throughout the galaxy. "Status. Report," she requested from Colonel Martinez. "Imperial. Forces are withdrawing from occupied systems. Faster than we projected," he replied, consulting his tablet. 17 liberated worlds in the past week with more evacuations scheduled. The Altarion refugees are already returning to their homeworld. Admiral Torres nodded with satisfaction. Any resistance from Imperial hardliners? Some isolated incidents, but nothing major. Most Imperial commanders seem to understand that conventional tactics won't work against our displacement technology. Dr. Sarah Chen joined them, carrying a steaming cup of coffee and looking tired, but pleased. The technology sharing program is ahead of schedule. We've already provided quantum communicators to 12 different species, allowing them to coordinate relief efforts. And our production capacity? We're manufacturing displacement-capable vessels as fast as we can train crews to operate them. The quantum mechanics are complex, but once people understand the basic principles, it becomes much easier. Admiral Torres looked out through the facility's large windows at the bustling activity below. Representatives from dozens of species were arriving daily, eager to learn about humanity's technology and to participate in the new galactic order that was emerging. 3 months later, Ambassador Velthar of the Zephyrian Empire stood before the newly formed Galactic Council on the neutral world of New Geneva. The chamber was filled with representatives from over 40 different species, many of whom had been under Imperial rule just weeks before. The humans had insisted on a simple democratic structure. Each species got one vote regardless of their technological level or population size. Decisions required a simple majority, with disputes handled by a rotating arbitration committee. The Zephyrian Empire formally requests membership in the Galactic Council. Ambassador Velthar announced, his voice carefully controlled. We understand that our past actions require adjustment of our policies and attitudes. Captain Velmak of the Altarion Coalition, the same officer who had sent the desperate refugee message months earlier, stood to address the assembly. The Altarion people have suffered greatly under Imperial rule. What assurance do we have that the Empire will honor Council decisions? Dr. Sarah Chen rose from the human delegation. The Council's peacekeeping force will monitor compliance with all resolutions. Any species that returns to aggressive expansion will find themselves facing the combined response of the entire galactic community. She gestured to the holographic display showing the current deployment of the human fleet. Quantum displacement vessels were stationed throughout the galaxy, ready to respond to threats within minutes regardless of distance. However, Dr. Chen continued, we believe in second chances. The Zephyrian Empire has valuable scientific knowledge and cultural contributions to offer. If they're willing to operate under Council authority, they should be welcomed as equals. The vote was closer than many expected. Some species wanted to exclude the Empire entirely, while others supported the human position of reconciliation. In the end, the Zephyrian Empire was accepted as a probationary member, subject to review in 2 years. Admiral Kethvar, now serving as the Empire's military liaison to the Council, found himself working alongside officers from species his forces had once conquered. The irony wasn't lost on him, but he had to admit that the new system was more stable than the old Imperial structure. Admiral Torres, he said during a break in the military coordination meeting, I have a question that's been bothering me. The human admiral looked up from her tactical displays. What's that? Your species could have conquered the galaxy as easily as we did. Your technology makes traditional military resistance impossible. Why didn't you? Admiral Torres considered the question carefully. Because conquest doesn't create anything lasting. Fear and oppression only work as long as you're strong enough to maintain them. Cooperation and mutual benefit create relationships that can last for centuries. She pointed to the display showing trade routes that were already being established between former Imperial worlds and Earth. Look at what's happening now. Former enemies are becoming trading partners. Species that were isolated under Imperial rule are sharing technology and culture. The galaxy is becoming more prosperous and more stable than it ever was under the Empire. Admiral Kethavar studied the data, seeing economic growth and scientific advancement happening at rates that had never occurred under Imperial rule. You're saying that cooperation is more powerful than conquest? I'm saying that cooperation creates power while conquest only redistributes it. When you conquer someone, you get their resources, but you also get their resentment. When you cooperate with them, you get their resources and their enthusiasm. 6 months after first contact, the transformation of galactic civilization was remarkable. The Council had established trade agreements that allowed for the free exchange of goods and technology between member species. Scientific collaboration had led to breakthroughs in fields ranging from medicine to engineering. Dr. Chen stood in her laboratory on Earth, working with scientists from a dozen different species on a project that would have been impossible under the old Imperial system. They were developing improved quantum displacement technology that could be used for peaceful purposes, instant transportation of medical supplies to disaster areas, emergency evacuation of threatened populations, and rapid deployment of scientific equipment to study cosmic phenomena. The theoretical framework is sound, announced Dr. Kekstar, a Zephyrian physicist who had joined the project. If we can stabilize the quantum field at this frequency, we should be able to transport entire space stations. Think of the implications, added Dr. Velsara, an Altarion engineer. We could establish research outposts anywhere in the galaxy instantly. The boundaries between star systems would become meaningless for scientific exploration. Dr. Chen smiled as she watched former enemies working together to push the boundaries of knowledge. This was what she had envisioned when humanity first revealed its quantum displacement technology. Not a new form of conquest, but a new form of cooperation. The final validation of the new system came when the first crisis emerged. A rogue asteroid was detected on a collision course with the Centauri homeworld, threatening to cause a mass extinction event. Under the old Imperial system, the Centaurians would have faced the crisis alone or been ignored entirely. Instead, the Council's response was immediate. Human displacement vessels appeared in the Centauri system within hours, carrying mining equipment and deflection charges from a dozen different worlds. Zephyrian graviton technology was used to alter the asteroid's course, while Altarion crystal matrices provided the precise calculations needed for the deflection. The asteroid was successfully diverted, and the Centauri homeworld was saved through the combined efforts of species that had been enemies just months before. Admiral Torres stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Council headquarters, watching ships from dozens of different species arriving and departing through quantum displacement portals. The sight would have been impossible under the old Imperial system, where species were kept separate and subjugated. Quite a change from a year ago, Admiral Kethvar commented, joining her at the window. The best kind of change, Admiral Torres replied. The kind where everyone benefits. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.